The UPMC sports medicine experts in Central PA are here to help keep you in the game and improve your quality of life, no matter your age or activity level. Visit upmc.com/Central PA SportsMed to learn more.
Hey, welcome everybody to the Pennsylvania High School Football Report podcast. I'm Brian Linder here with Dan Sostek. Dan went from a couple years ago not really being on the podcast all that much to now he's the twice a week guy. Now that Nebi Asias left us, he ducked out on the. I think we covered the fact he ducked out on the football
Pick,
pick 'em because
yeah.
I dusted him and I dusted Dan too and
Well, Mark
Epler's,
DiMartini's doing great. So
Epler's gonna argue with me, but I still claimed the championship last year. People's champ in the house, Mark DiMartini, aka Tom DiMartini, bringing up the rear in the pick'ems this year. Dan, how you doing, buddy?
in the pick'em, I wish I was doing better. In real life, I'm doing fine, and I talked about it with that. But I mean, we are really in football season now because it is always funny, right? That we're already a fifth of the way through the high school football season when everything else gets going and kind of the big picture world with the NFL starting tonight and college football. It's football time. Doesn't feel like it when you walk outside, but it's football time.
So here's the question I got for you, Dan. Here's the question I got for you. I've covered football now all over the country, it seems like, but really southeast. Started out in South Carolina, then went to Florida, and now I'm here in Pennsylvania. And you've been here a whole lot longer than I have been, right?
hmm
Is Pennsylvania an elite high school football state? No,
I
it's not. It's not, Dan. I'm gonna tell you why. I cut you off there. I'm gonna tell you why.
the trick question.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you why, Dan.
I know where you're going.
When you look around the state, and every week at PennLive.com, we post a list of the top performances from around the state. It takes us hours to do it. We read a lot of hardworking journalists around the state. Don't get a lot of credit going out and they're covering these teams, but they're also not secretaries for teams. Okay, they don't work for teams. They cover them. A lot of them have the best of intentions. Okay, and they love covering and love doing this job. I love doing this job. You love doing this job, right? I had a granddad call me. He's actually from Ohio. His grandson finished second this week in our Player of the Week poll because we create a Player of the Week poll off of that top performances in the state every week. And like I said, I think that we've had at least 130 off the first 2 weeks. And as we were talking about the poll, because he had a few questions, he told me, how frustrating it was that he couldn't figure out where his grandson matched up statistically in the state of Pennsylvania. Couldn't find anything on that anywhere. And it's 2023, and he makes a great point, and it's a point I talked about since I've been here. There's no excuse. If you're a coach out there and you're not putting your player stats out. I'm from the South. They say a hit dog a holler. So if you get upset by what I'm saying here and you feel like I'm coming at you, hey man, sorry. Okay. 2023. There's a lot of ways, there's a lot of people around a program who can handle stats for you kids, who can get their names out there and give them an opportunity to be on the platform. It's a shame in the state that has so many great high school football players and programs. We can't, as journalists, we can't keep up with everything. It's impossible. Staffs are a little than other. We're lucky at Penn Live, Dan. You know this. We've added 2 full-time positions across the last 2 years. I don't think very many other newspapers have been able to do that, Pennsylvania or media sites, and that's no knock against them. Because again, there's guys out there scrapping as hard as they can scrap, track down box scores and stats. Okay. And you look at Penn Live and we put everybody on the same standing. Everybody has an opportunity to take part like that across every media outlet in the state. But I'm not even talking about participating with media out. Just a common source. PIAA, where are you guys at on this? Where are you guys at? Why can't we pull up and have statewide stat leaders? Why can't we have standings that are accurate? And again, as journalists, we do everything we can do this and tell, and we tell stories as accurately as possible. There's no excuse why Pennsylvania, with as many great football players, great football programs, if my kid played for a team that doesn't have its records updated, I'm probably looking somewhere else, Dan. Because you know why? You know this. The minimal thing a coach can do is to put their kids and give their kids an opportunity for their hard work throughout the year to be highlighted. And again, it doesn't have to be on PennLive, but it could be it could be in the Erie newspaper, on GoErie.com. It could be Lancaster Online. It could be at the Carlisle Sentinel. Hey, we want you guys, if you're in our area, we want you guys to be here. It could be on Max Preps. Okay. But we have just information deserts. You look out in Philly, and I know there's a lot of stuff going on. I talked to a lot of coaches there, and they legitimately have a lot of issues they have to deal with. Okay, not just playing football and lining up, but PIAA, come on, get this together, coaches. Let's get this together. I'm telling you, if I had a kid, he played for a team, not just football, field hockey, soccer, anything, and my coach wasn't doing the minimum, which is just making sure we had somebody who sent in a result or posted a result, posted what the kids who worked so hard did, I'd be questioning what's going on. And again, if I hurt some feelings there, that South would say hit dog or holler. I don't really apologize, because if you're not doing it, if you're one of these coaches, you're not doing the most you can for your program, and it's really a minimal thing. Dan, was that a
Well,
rant?
I mean, it is a rant, but it's something that we've been dealing with. It's not just a one school thing or a one coach thing. It's just something that it's kind of, yeah. And I get it. There's a lot of things these coaches have to do. And I'm not calling out any coach. I'm not going to be as point as you are, because I'm 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 a little less
I'm not calling out a
confrontational.
specific coach. There's
Yeah,
there's
for
there's
sure.
too
But
many of there's too many of them to name.
yeah, but my the two things I think of is, number one, it's just really not fair to the kids. Like, it's not fair to these kids to not have statistics put out there in the public when they film is always going to be what gets these kids to college offers, right? But statistics are going to be what gets some coaches to look at a kid who they might have never heard of and look that he's averaging 10 yards a carry, averaging 6 touchdowns. The other thing I think of too is, basketball season comes, every single game there there's a home and road scorer at the scores table. And I get it, it's easier to keep stats in basketball than football. Why isn't there some sort of system like that where it's borderline, it just has become part of the ingrained culture? Because that's how it works in basketball. I have never been at a basketball game in high school in PA where there's not a scorekeeper there that you can take a picture of the book at the end of the game. And let's face it, this isn't as much of a basketball state as it is a football state. And I think also it might be one of those things where maybe some parents have to get involved and say, "Hey, I'm willing to give up my Friday night to keep stats." You don't even have to be that great at it. And for me, it's not like, I understand defensive stats are very hard to keep, especially from a box. You can look at the huddle later, but those are kind of hard to have the night of. I totally get those. Offensive stats to me those are things that I keep while I'm writing copy and getting and covering a game. I keep them myself when I'm at a game. I manage to keep that while doing five other things. If you can find someone, do one other thing, and all these teams have iPads. There are apps on iPads that you can keep stats on, and there are plenty of programs that do it right. I don't want to make it sound like there aren't any other programs. Is there some fantastic programs out there that keep stats, get it to you literally 15 minutes after the game ends? And I don't want to make it sound like I don't want to make it sound like we're not grateful for those guys, because it's the opposite. We're super thankful for them, and what they do is good work. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but it's also part of the job. Not everything about a job's easy. So
And we're not, and I'm not saying, this, you know, put them on Penn Live.
yeah,
We'd love to have all the teams in our immediate area stats, but anywhere in the state, again, this is a granddad whose son played quarterback at a school in Pittsburgh, and he comes from Ohio, every Friday to watch his grandson play, and he's lamenting the fact that he cannot find where how his grandson stacks up in the state anywhere accurately. And it's just something that it's really grinds my gears. Come on, PIAA. Come on, coaches. Come on, coaches association. It's not that hard in 2023 to let's get this together. New Jersey's done it. Florida's done it. So the only thing preventing this from happening is the adult. And we do have elite football in Pennsylvania. I've covered football in Florida. Okay. There's some teams that right here in this state that'll match up with any team in Florida. Hey, St. Joe's Prep. Okay. They just went toe to toe with IMG, which is right there in Bradenton. Okay. And there's just some fantastic programs here. So when I say no, it's not an elite state football, I don't mean by talent on the field. I don't mean by coaching ability. I mean by the things that adults aren't doing right now that could take it to the next level and to give the kids who, when they come to your practice, they come to your off-season workouts, and this is not just football either. It's every other sport too. And you preach to them that they need to be working hard, and these kids that do work hard and they do right, and then you can't find a simple way to do the minimum, which is to try to do your best, get them on whatever platform
And yeah, like you
services you
said,
the best.
you don't have to reach out to us. You can post at Max Preps is a
Well,
pretty easy place to post
whatever
stats. And
your local media outlet is, whatever platform services you the best, if my coach, if my kid plays a sport and my coach isn't doing that minimum, get them on there timely and to keep it updated, and my kid's been busting their butt, then I'm going to ask questions, okay? And I'm going to be questioning what's going on here. And again, I say whatever platform services you coaches and athletes and players, again, not just football, but PIAA, hey, other states are doing it. Let's get this thing together. How amazing would it be for these kids if we could pull up a statewide leaderboard that everybody had access to, not just PennLive, but everybody.
yeah,
Lancaster, Erie. I mentioned those before. Altoona, everybody in the state. The papers in Pittsburgh, and not just the papers though, the
well,
fans. That granddad in Ohio, and he can say, "Oh, my grandson is sixth in the state in passing. That's awesome."
yeah.
It's
I mean,
not
what
that
sticks
difficult,
to
man.
me too is Tom, Tom Mark DiMartini, as I feel like we're just gonna keep calling him Mark from now on. He texted us the other day. He said Ty Salzer at State College leads Pennsylvania in receiving yards, and then he eventually said it says that on Max Preps. And I told him, well, then he doesn't lead the state in receiving yards because we just don't like. There's not one standard place where you can find any of this information at all, and it's really frustrating because you could easily do it. We have like it's honestly going to get difficult to figure out holds state records for things. I mean,
It
we have
it
Alex
already is.
Irby from Steel High that we believe is about to set a bunch could set a bunch of records this year. Even that, like it's getting harder and harder to track down that information, and so
It already
it's really like we said, we're not complaining for ourselves either. It might sound like it because we're
we're complaining for the
reporters, and
kids.
it would make our jobs easier. We're not going to lie about that and say there isn't some motivation there that it would make our Friday nights and Saturday nights and the Wednesday nights and Thursday nights that it would make them go a little easier.
Well,
But
hey,
we're
baby,
being honest.
we're seventh
It
in
is
the
about
com score, baby. We're seventh in com score. You make our jobs easier. We're making your jobs easier
we
because
just we
that's the
because
amount of
at the
eyes
end of
and
the
ears in
day,
the
we
country.
want to at the end of the day, you can say what we want. You want. We want to publicize these kids and give these kids coverage. I mean, that's why we got in this industry, right? That's why we're still in preps and haven't, taken jobs elsewhere. It's because we like doing this. We want to cover these kids. We want to, we love covering high school sports and we want to help the kids and help the area. It's hard to do that when you're not getting
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So listen, coach, do what you do. Do what you do. But if you're listening to this, parents, if you're listening to this and your coach isn't getting your kids on whatever platform serves them the best in terms of getting this minimal thing, which is just showing the result of their hard work, to an audience of whatever platform serves them best, uh, I would have some questions. Okay. And it's disappointing we're here and we look across the state and there's so many great programs who are putting their stuff out there on every platform they can and giving their kids every opportunity to have the spotlight shined on them for their hard work. And then there are good programs too that are good on the field who were not giving their kids every opportunity to have that spotlight shine on them. And it is a shame. It's a crying shame. No excuse for it. It's wrong. Okay. So let's do better. Let's get together, PIAA. Let's get together, Coaches Association, you know, and let's make this right for these kids. Stop telling them to work hard if you're not going to give every opportunity for them to have the light shine on them. Again, not just on PennLive. I'm not saying this just for PennLive. I'm not saying this just for any newspaper. Like I said, it could be whatever platform you guys feel serves you best, but any platform is better than no platform. There's a lot of good athletes right now who are on no platform because it's not getting handled and it should be getting handled.
The UPMC sports medicine experts in Central PA are here to help keep you in the game and improve your quality of life, no matter your age or activity level. Visit upmc.com/Central PA SportsMed to learn more.
Anyway, Dan, that's a rant.
That's the negative of Pennsylvania
I think they
football.
call it. I think they call it professional wrestling. I think they call it a shoot.
Yep.
But so it's an elite football state in terms of talent on the field. It's an elite football state in terms of coaching ability. And there's some great stories, some great things happening in terms of, you know, helping some kids out. But man, there's a lot of people out there too, guys. And again, this is a football podcast. I say football, other sports, PIAA, coaches. Let's get it together for these kids. We tell them to work hard, they work hard, and then we don't shine the light on that hard work all the time like we should. So, Dan, in terms of elite football, NFL season starts tonight. We're recording right now on Thursday. Kansas City Chiefs take on the Detroit Lions. They're kind of my adopted NFL team. We're not really supposed to, as journalists, we're not supposed to really pick sides, but we don't cover the NFL, Dan. So, you know, kind of adopted them a little bit because my Colts are terrible because I grew up liking the Colts. So I kind of adopted them. Somebody watching, but you know what we did? PennLive this week, Dan. Uh, because Pennsylvania is such a talented state in terms of football ability on the field, uh, we ranked. We looked at some of the top NFL guys heading into the season. We only did 15. There's far more than 15. But Dan, I know you looked at the rankings. We're going to do a draft of just Pennsylvania guys, a fantasy draft. I know you looked at my ranking. I have Micah Parsons first. What do you think? Is he the first pick, or who are you taking in your war room right now? Dan Sostek, you're on the clock. Pennsylvania football player, best in the NFL. Go.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough one. I think that
You're
even
good.
with his
You're going to homer
older age,
out, aren't you? You're going to
I'm
homer
I'm gonna
out.
homer out.
You're going to
I'm gonna
go for the guy that you watched it pit.
I'm gonna take it a step further. I'm not gonna go for a guy I watched at Pitt. I'm gonna go with the guy who's after his rookie year with the Rams opened up a bar on Pitt's campus called AD's P Cafe, and we just sit out there every night while he was a $1 million NFL player in the middle of Oakland, just hanging out with his brother while college kids went and drank at his place. And I've served him when I worked as a food runner at times, so I'm a little biased here, but for me, it's almost positional value more than anything. I still think if you have a guy like that in the middle and Aaron Donald, I think pressure up the middle is always going to be the most valuable thing you can provide to a team. So
He had a down
I
year,
think it's a 1A, 1B situation.
but
So
he had a down year last year.
yeah, I mean, he he barely even practiced. I feel he's
Now,
been considered retirement for like
yeah,
3 years. So.
now don't get me wrong. I think he's a destroyer of worlds. He's a bad man, Aaron Donald. But he only had he had his worst season last year, and he's
So
starting to get
yeah,
up there a little bit.
yeah, I'm trying to provide a little pushback
The
because I
water
feel
boy,
like,
Dan. The water
yeah,
boy.
I
Come
mean,
on.
yeah, I mean, I think that having that pressure up the middle, if he's back to where he was a year or so ago, I just think the way he provides pressure up the middle, Aaron Donald does, there's nothing more valuable in the sport, I think, than that. When Aaron Donald is on his A game, it because you watch Micah and it's a special thing to watch right off the edge, but off the edge is a little different than coming up the middle, going against these guards and centers, and just literally teleporting as a 300-pound man. Like it's something that teams aren't ready for, and it's harder to scheme for that, I think. So I'll provide a little counter. I think it's literally 1A, 1B, and if you're drafted for the next 5 years, it's not a competition. Obviously, it's Micah, and it's not even close.
Aaron Donald doesn't have his own show on Bleacher Report.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Micah does.
I think Aaron Donald would rather just stay in Pittsburgh and eat some Primanti Brothers than ever do anything. He's not a big public guy. Micah might be hosting Good Morning America when he's done playing.
You you like your Permani brothers?
See, it's one of those things that everyone said was overrated, and now is kind of underrated because everyone says it's so it's so hacked. I don't like that it's everywhere now. It should have just stayed in Pittsburgh. It's in like Florida and
I think it's just okay.
yeah. Well, that's what happens when you become a chain, right? You
Yeah.
lose kind of
Everybody told me I had to go to Permani Brothers and been a couple times.
yeah.
I think it's just okay.
They're best sandwich. All the best sandwich places in Pittsburgh are closing. So Uncle Sam's subs is where you have to go.
I've never had it. Never had it.
Yeah,
So
but
Michael
we
Parsons,
do.
Aaron Donald, 1A, 1B. Going Parsons.
Yeah,
I just think he's a game changer. He's about to be set a record, barring a disaster of a year here, by all everything we've seen from training camp. He's been absolutely dominating, you know, Cowboys offensive line, which is pretty solid
yeah.
in training camp. And we talked to Lance Dean, who's CDE's coach. You guys that don't know, we talked about this on the podcast. CDE's coach Lance Dean actually trains Michael Parsons a lot in the offseason. He's going out to Texas and work with him. I think he's worked with him some in Florida. And then, of course, when he comes back home, and Michael works with some other people too, the collective in Austin, stuff like that. But Lance is one of the guys that's been working with Micah since, I think he was like a freshman at Penn State. And, bigger, stronger, faster. Did a story with Lance about everything that seeing from Micah. And that's a scary thought for NFL quarterback. So I am really, really excited to see what Micah Parsons does this year because again, he's the greatest high school football player I've ever seen on the field. So we took him one overall officially on the Penn Live on the site rankings, but Dan Sostek is homering out. He's going Aaron Donald. How
Do you
about
want another
three?
homer? Do you want another homer pick that's not hit related?
Go ahead.
I think you missed a guy on the list personally,
Who? Who?
and I think it's because he's been a little hurt over his first couple years in the NFL. But I think when Christian Barmore on the Patriots is on the field, I think
Hey
he's
man.
going to be a really
Hey,
really good player, and
hey man.
I
Hey man. Let me tell you a story about a pro day I went. Used to cover all these pro days at South Carolina State University, and Buddy Pugh, who's a legendary coach, he's retiring at the end of the year. Had a great relationship with him. But I would go to a pro day. Carolina and Clemson would each host a pro day dance, and that's where their kids would work out. Well, South Carolina State's right here in Orangeburg, which is pretty much in the center of the state too. So when they would hold their pro day, then the kids from like Wofford and Winthrop, no, Winthrop didn't have a football team. Wofford and like Coastal. This was before Coastal kind of got as good as they were, and Charleston Southern and the Citadel and North Greenville and the small colleges would come and they would all there'd be 150, 200 people there. And occasionally you would get a guy who had sort of been on the periphery of the league or in the league would show up too to work out. And a guy did that one year was Areese Curry. You guys don't remember him. He was a blazing fast state champion track runner in South Carolina high school who went and played college football at Clemson. He was a second or third round pick by the Chicago Bears. First year in the league, he had like 49, 50 catches, all rookie team, and then he just kind of faded away. He came out that day, and this was probably now, 15, 16, 17 years ago, and he ran a 4.37 twice. I was standing there behind NFL scouts with stopwatches. They walk off the field, they go in to the weight room, start the lifts, okay? They locked a bunch of the guys out. Only 4 guys they called, 4 names out of like the 150. They go in the weight room, and Big John Williams, who was the strength and conditioning coach, turns around and says, "Sorry, guys," to the other ones who weren't on. So he said, "That's it." And they got all mad. And he said, "Hey, the NFL is not for everybody." Okay. That was just after the 40s. They turned it down to 4 people. One of the names they didn't call was Reese Curry. So Reese walks in. He'd been on the NFL 2 or 3 years, and the Packer scout's sitting there. They're getting ready to do this. And he says, "You guys want to talk to me?" And he says, "No, we're good." And he said, "Did you see what times I ran?" And he said, he looked up, Dan, and he said, "Hey, we know you can run. We just don't know that you can stay healthy."
Yeah.
Hey, I mean,
Uh,
Barmore can't stay on the field. We can't rank him, my man. I think
yeah.
he's a beast.
Yeah. I would agree with that, but you have DeAndre Swift ranked, so I feel like that kind of goes out the
Andre
door.
Swift had 1,000 yards total almost last year. He caught almost 50
Maybe I'm
balls.
maybe being a little biased because he ruined my fantasy football season.
Yeah, he had about
But
2
if I'm
catches for
being
every
honest,
tackle Christian Barmore had.
yeah. But if I'm being honest though, my next pick would probably be Cameron Hayward, just because I think that dude's one of the most underrated players in football and has been for 10 years. Just if you're a defensive tackle coming up and you're not that Aaron Donald type that's gonna just be this freak athlete, I would watch Cameron Hayward tape forever. That dude is so fun to watch and he's been doing it at a high level for a decade now and doesn't seem to get the credit a lot of other guys on that Steelers line does. He's so fun to watch for
It
me.
is shocking to look up his stats and see he was drafted in 2011,
Yeah.
and he's a defensive tackle, which is an incredibly physical position. He had 10.5 sacks last year. We had him at 4. We had Saquon Barkley third, man. Come on now. Saquon carried
I'm
the
not a
the
run
G-men.
I'm doing what the NFL does. I don't value running backs. I'm not hey,
Oh my lord.
they're only giving them $10 million. I'm not giving them the third pick.
We got to get that fixed, Dan, because I get it because you see running
It's
back
gone
step
too
up.
far. It's gone way too far.
Yeah, yeah. Like you look at the Giants, like, okay, I get it. You see a lot of running backs now where you stick them in and you replace them and you get good return, but the Giants aren't making the playoffs last year without Saquon Barkley.
Well, here's my thing with it. Is the whole thought process about why you don't pay him is you say you can get 80% of Saquon Barkley from a free agent or something like that, and that's true. But that 20% is the is the hardest part to find, right? Like those are the things those are the plays that you turn a 2 yard loss into an 8 yard gain, and it completely changes the drive and gets you a touchdown instead of a punt. I mean, I think, and I just think that it's one of those things where I'm a big analytics guy, I'm a big Moneyball guy. I love all that stuff, but it's one of those times when I think it's gone a little too far. Now, do I think that running backs should be getting paid the same as quarterbacks? No, I don't. I don't think that. I don't think in terms in a salary cap in a salary capitalist sport, sure, go ahead. But in a salary cap sport, I get it. But a guy like Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, those dudes, they're different and they win you games, and I'm sure the best coaches all agree. I'm sure this is more of a front office.
So far, Dan, we've got a guy from Harrisburg High School and Michael Parsons, Aaron Donald's Penn Hill's guy, Saquon Barkley's Plymouth White Marsh. Um, I'm sorry, he's not Plymouth White
No,
Marsh. He's what was it Plymouth? What high school? Why am I blanking all of a sudden? I'm getting old, Dan. I'm 40 years old.
wasn't it? It was
Whitehall,
Allen Lehigh, right? Or
Whitehall.
yeah, Whitehall
Yeah, I don't know why I have Plymouth White Marsh on my brain with him. I know why, because our guy Luke Winterbottom.
is dominating.
Side note, he scored another touchdown last week. Kid has cancer. They're on a bye week this week, but follow that story, Luke Winterbottom. That's why I'm thinking Plymouth White Marsh. But no, Saquon was a Whitehall guy. Cam Hayward played his high school football in Georgia, but he's a Pittsburgh native.
Yeah, his dad's a pit legend, Ironhead Hayward. So
Yeah, dude. My dad was a Saints fan growing up, I used to watch Ironhead, who was
One of the greatest nicknames of all time,
yeah,
Ironhead Hayward.
he was just this fat dude who would just crash into the line as a running back and nobody wanted to tackle him.
Yeah.
Uh, so that shows you how old I am, which doesn't feel that old, but somehow it is. Hey, 5. We went with Kevin Byard, who again played his high school football in Georgia, but he's a Philly native. He's a guy was a third round pick, 64th overall by the Titans in 2016. Had a really, he probably doesn't get the flowers the way he should because he's a really good safety. That's who we went with 5. Who's on the Sostek list though? Are you cool with Byard at 5, or who are you going to go with?
I think Byard's a great. I'm with you. He's somehow a defensive back that racks up interceptions and stays underrated instead of because I feel like a lot of the DBs that you know pick up interceptions kind of get overrated quick. He's still remained relatively anonymous, so I think that's a good pick. And I kind of side eyed your picking number 6 at first, and the more I thought about it, he's a really good player.
Oh, 67 tackles.
Yeah, I
Zaire
mean
Franklin.
yeah, I mean they were on defense a lot last year, but he's a really good. I watched him a lot at Syracuse because I'm a big ACC guys, and he's from Philly as well. He was always that guy that when you're watching a Syracuse football game, he would just jump off the page because that's one of my favorite things about college football is watching those linebackers that are just way too good to be playing college football still and just are running around. And he was one of those guys. Like he was one of those guys that did what was he? Yeah, 7th round draft pick. And I just remember saying that guy's gonna play 10 years in the league. I don't
Well,
sometimes he's overthinking.
he's 5 years into that 10 years, right? I mean, coming as a 7th round pick with the Colts, Zaire Franklin, Philly native, played at LaSalle College High, um, and 167 tackles last year. So I don't think he was on the list last year, and now he moves up 7. Now here's a guy I think Dan is going to have a big year. DJ Moore, Chicago Bears. He had 93 catches in 2021. You were telling me not to draft him on my fantasy team. Now, he's an Imhotep guy. He's a Philly native, and I got him on a couple fantasy teams.
Well, my telling you not to draft him had nothing to do with what I think of DJ Moore as a player. I think he is a fantastic wide receiver, like a top 10, 15 wide receiver in terms of talent in the league. I just don't know if they're gonna I just think he's been one of those guys that hasn't had, the right quarterback. Maybe Justin Fields gets there. Justin Fields is electric as can be. I don't know if he's quite there as a passer yet in terms of the NFL game, but if he is, I mean, I think DJ Moore is a legitimate number one talent. So I don't have any issue with
Eight,
that.
at 8, I had Miles Sanders, played at Woodland Hills. He's now with the Carolina Panthers running back. Had over 1,000 yards, over 1,200 yards, helping the Eagles make it to the Super Bowl last year. 9, we had Jaquan Brisker, the safety for Chicago Bears, who's a Pittsburgh native who played at Gateway. And at 10, we had another guy who I know is near and dear to your heart, Jordan Whitehead, safety for the New York Jets, Pittsburgh native, played at Central Valley and then at Pitt. What do
Jordan
you think
Whitehead's
about
one
the
of my probably my I'd say in terms of guys I got to cover in college at Pitt, I still say I covered a little bit of Aaron Donald and he jumped off the page right away, but Jordan Whitehead was one of the most fun guys I've ever covered in college because Uh, it was one of those things where I think his speed played a little more in college than it does in the NFL. Now he's more of a physical. He hits hard in the NFL. That's what he gets paid to do. But in college, he was playing running back. He debuted at running back in the first of those 4 Penn State games that Pitt won 42-39, and um, it he looked like he could play. He could have played running back in college if he really wanted to. He was a really fun guy. He's already got a Super Bowl ring too, I believe. So
I think that group there, I mean, Brisker's the guy who
he's
he had
gonna
104 tackles and 4 sacks with an interception as a rookie. He could elevate into really being
yeah.
a top guy in the league this year.
He's so
Like next year when we do this, he could be a top 5 guy,
yep.
you know?
Yeah.
So let's run real quick through the rest of the group here because we got some more things we'll talk about. But we had James Conner on here at 11, the Erie native, McDowell high guy, running back. Everybody kind of knows his story. Played at Pitt too. Absolute freaking warrior. That guy beat Hodgkin's lymphoma. We've had a couple kids on here who are dealing with that. He's still going, Dan. I mean, He had over 1,000 combined yards last year for the Cardinals. They're
He
gonna
might
be
get
bad this year,
500.
but
He might have 500 carries this year. They
yeah, I
might
mean,
just
they're
run
gonna
him.
load him up.
Yeah.
Tyler Boyd at 12, again, just he's just a good NFL football player. Like, he could I feel like he could go to a lot of other teams and put up bigger numbers. He's there with the Bengals as their third wide receiver. He had 58 catches, 762 yards, 5 touchdowns. He played at Clareton, obviously, and then with your pick guys. And then I think the end of it gets really interesting. To wrap it up, 13 we had Kyle Pitts, who everybody knows is a Philly native, tight end for the Falcons, played at Archbishop Wood, was a first round pick 2 years ago. Nick Scott, safety for the Bengals, who's really sort of ascending in his career, starting to really do well, signed a free agent deal with the Bengals. He's a Lancaster native. He actually played his high school ball in Virginia, but he's a Lancaster native, so we included him. And then to close it out, we had DeAndre Swift, Philly native, played at St. Joe's Prep, obviously coming back to the Eagles. Uh, Probably hasn't put together the numbers that people were expecting from him when he came out of Georgia and the Lions drafted him. But still, I mean, he averaged he averaged 5.5 yards a carry last year, caught 48 passes. He had almost 1,000 yards combined. I'm excited to see what he can do in Philly. Obviously, he needs to stay healthy. To me, the one that kind of sticks out there is like Kyle Pitts is like top 4 talent. Uh,
Highest
if
tight
something
end ever
doesn't click,
drafted. Highest tight end ever drafted in the NFL draft.
I mean, he only had 28 catches for 356 yards last year. His rookie year had 68 catches for 1,026. I think he's a phenomenal talent. In that draft, he came out. I thought him and Micah Parsons were the two best players in that 2021 draft. So, for whatever reason, though, and obviously the Falcons haven't had the best quarterback situation uh, across the first 2 years of his career there, but you know, he's another guy who could easily end up being in the top five again next year. And if he's not, then I guess you start to worry.
Yeah, yeah. Can I throw out two more names that you didn't mention on the
Go ahead.
list that I number one's Mike McGlinchey.
Mhm.
He's
Very good
just a
player.
really good tackle. So I've long been a big fan of his. Um, and Sebastian Joseph Day is a pretty good defensive tackle too. I think he's from Stroudsburg High School. He got a big deal with the Chargers. He's a pretty good
Connor
run defender. And
Connor
then
McGovern's a guy who's gonna, I think, start at guard for the Bills.
And
And
then my brother and my mom both went to the University of Pennsylvania, so I got to give a shout out to Justin Watson. So
hey, look,
uh,
hey man, who's gonna catch the ball? Is he still with the Chiefs this year?
yeah, he's with the Chiefs. Him and Craig Reynolds are the two PA representatives tonight. So
So, the Chiefs are gonna be interesting. Is it gonna be Valdez Scantling? Is it gonna be
well, and we
uh
didn't even mention Sky Moore on their team too.
Sky Moore? Sky Moore,
Shane's
Sky Moore.
Academy.
Sky Moore's a guy, second round pick. He could be a guy who a PA guy who could definitely elevate because somebody's got to catch the ball from probably the best quarterback on the planet right now, Mahomes. Um, so he could definitely
And one more shout out to
elevate.
my high school classmate and my buddy Tano Passigno from Wissahickon High School, who's just signed a new deal with the Saints. Is a big old DN from Villanova, so he'd be top five in my all bias list that I'm clearly forming right now. So
I think Dan has a story. I think where and I don't know if it's true or not. It might just big fish tale of when that guy swatted his shot in a basketball
I
game.
mean, he was more of a basketball player in high school than football, and he
Alshon Jeffrey was too. Ended up playing with
yeah.
Eagles. I covered him in high school. He was amazing. So, well, hey, this NFL season is exciting. There's many more PA guys actually in the league than we just listed here. We just run down a list of some of the top guys. By all means, let us know if you think we missed somebody or who would be on your list.
We
PennLive.com.
didn't even mention Damar Hamlin. I mean, maybe the biggest
Damar
name of
Hamlin should
all.
have. You know what? I should have probably put Damar Hamlin on the list.
'Cause
Um,
he's probably more famous than just about anyone besides Donald or Parsons at this
just
point.
out of and just out of sentimentality, if that's the word. I think I might have just made up a word for what he's been through. He probably should be on the list. Um, and I'm excited. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous and scared to see him play, but I'm excited to see him play too.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I trust him and I trust their doctors. You know your body, and so obviously, if he feels like he can go and they feel like he can go, then good. Uh, I will be watching. That'll be something I'll be watching. So let's flip it back to some high school football. I tell you what, before we hit high school football, man, how about Coach Prime?
Wow. I mean,
I mean, this has
it
nothing to do with Pennsylvania high school football, but that's been like the big topic of discussion this week in all of football. Coach Prime Colorado goes out and just takes it to TCU.
uh, I mean, to me, my dad was texting me, Shadur Sanders, this kid's incredible. Wow, look at his stats. I said, yeah, he's very good, but I mean, the star of that game to me was I Travis Hunter looks like I would if I'm selling my soul for a non-quarterback in a draft, that kid just seems like someone who's going to be able to do anything he
He
wants
he's
when
a
he gets
top
to play.
three pick, Dan,
Yeah,
and Shador maybe a top 10 pick. And I'm gonna tell you, I had questions. I actually posted this on Twitter. I'll be one of the first to admit I had questions about Deion Sanders and the Colorado program. The roster overhaul was part of it. The other part is again, I covered HBCU football for almost 10 years. And like I said, I have a good relationship with Buddy Pugh. And I watched Buddy wear out Jackson State in the Celebration Bowl. And he did it not having the big names that Dion had at Jackson State. So I'm like, I don't know, man. Something and then he went and he lost the next year in the Celebration Bowl. I think that was to North Carolina. I think that was North Carolina A&T they lost to. I can't remember exactly. So I watched both of those games. I'm like, I don't know, but I think Dion has done a lot of good things. First of all, I think Shador did a lot of work with Tom Brady. Could be wrong, but I think there was a story this week about Brady sending some texts after the game, and I know there were some pictures this summer. I tell you, he kind of looks a little bit like Brady with the way he kind of has that. He had that kind of calmness in the pocket, the ability to sort of hang in there and deliver with accuracy. Okay, he looked like a different quarterback than I saw play in those two Celebration Bowls. And that is the I think I watched 3 Jackson State games across last year. 2 of them were the Celebration Bowls. He was a better quarterback than I seen. The kid I saw play in the Celebration Bowls, I didn't think was a first round draft pick. Kid I saw play TCU thinks a top 10 pick. Now, I also think, and I think both of these things can be true, TCU's defense is horrendously bad,
yeah.
but ball placement was there. The
I
way
mean,
he
if you're going
operated in the
against a,
pocket. Yeah,
that's what I always say though. If you're going against a horrible defense, you put
yeah,
up 45. It still means you're a good.
yeah.
Like it's not like just a horrible defense does just not automatically give up 42 points. A horrible defense allows a good offense to take advantage of it. That's
So
what that.
I think he's a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
Travis Hunter, I think, is a top 3 pick. My concern with Travis Hunter is this. Um, and I've seen a lot of people like, oh, well, more coaches should just let him go, like Dion let Travis Hunter
He's
go.
gonna get hurt.
And he played like 120 snaps. Well, a guy plays one side of the football in college and gets rest, and so he plays like, I don't know, 40 snaps in a game, right? 50. And through the course of a season, he's gonna get hurt. It just happens. These guys are too big, fast, and strong. He played 120 snaps in that game. He's gonna snap something up, man, if he keeps playing that many
Well,
snaps.
I don't know if you watched. There was a viral clip going around today of Bill Belichick asked about why they don't cross train other positions to play long snapper. Why you waste a roster spot on long snapper? He went on a 10-minute rant going through the history of special teams in the NFL, and the too long didn't read of it was basically like the special teams have become so complicated that a long snapper is a position that takes a while to train people. And if that player is a wide tight end and a long snapper, and your tight end gets hurt, then you don't have a long snapper now, and you're completely screwed in this kicking game for the rest of the year. And teams started realizing that, and that's why they've also stopped having two-way players as much because you lose two players with one injury.
So I I am fascinated, and I'll tell you, I'm fascinated by how this is gonna pan out. Like, I'm gonna watch, like, Travis Hunter to me, again, top 3 pick, and I don't know if you take him as a receiver, as a corner. I think probably as a corner.
Yeah,
He jumped that route and made that pick. That was incredible. And so I'm worried though that they're gonna get him hurt. I hope that maybe they have some games where, and I don't know if this will be with their roster this year because I think they look very good. I don't know if they have the roster where they're going to have a lot of games where they can necessarily rest him a little more.
yeah.
But I just don't know if he can keep up that pitch count and that pace without getting hurt. I certainly hope he doesn't, because if they do keep playing him that way and he holds up, it's going to be an incredible year, like unlike anything we've ever seen for him. And then as far as this Colorado program goes as a whole, though, Dan, I'll say again, I have my doubts about Prime from what I saw in the Celebration Bowls, and then get here and they had the roster overhaul and some of the photos you've seen coming out of their camp. They ain't like the biggest team or whatever. But I tell you, man, the running back they got, I think Dylan Edwards is his name, right? Dylan
Yeah.
Edwards. He's explosive. Jimmy Horn, who made a couple plays people don't realize
That Joe Horn's son?
he played at Sanford Seminole in
Yeah.
Florida, um, which is near my old stomping grounds, and I actually know some of the assistants on that squad. That kid's explosive. He made a couple plays in the game. He still hasn't flashed everything he can do. They had another receiver, Xavier. His name's escaping me. He looked pretty good. Travis Hunter. Um, they have some weapons on offense, and their offensive line held up a little bit better than I thought it would. If I don't think it's going to happen this year, okay, but with the way he works the transport for transfer portal, the way he recruits, he keeps these kids together one more year. These skill guys. Then next year, Colorado college football playoff. What do you think?
Well, it might be tough just because I don't know if they're going to have enough. Whatever the Pac-12 is at that point, they might not have enough good wins to make. But the thing that's fascinating to me is that I saw that they're now in the mix for the number one quarterback in 25 or 26. You think about a lot of the kids in our area, like Rico Scott, Stone Saunders, those guys that had Colorado offers that they probably, kind of brushed away. Like, I don't know if Dion's going to have this program ready in time. I'm sure Rico Scott's still plenty happy going to Tuscaloosa and playing for Nick Saban. But do you think there's a little part in Rico's back of mind of like, man, that does look a little fun playing for Coach Prime? I was like, I think I think I'm really excited to see because this was such a big moment for that program in terms of having a national stage win like this. This is all they needed this year to hit the to have a top 5 recruiting class. Literally, they just needed one big win, and it was
So
going to
I'm
happen.
not going to miss a game Colorado plays this year. Probably not going to miss a press conference. And then I'll tell you, Coach Prime, he's on the rise. Dabo Sweeney, my prediction, either this year or next, he's out of college football.
Well, I don't think to me, I don't think he can go to the NFL. I think he's
He
one of those
can.
guys. Yeah,
He can.
he would be a disaster. But the thing that's weird about him that I know Clemson fans and they are it's driving them crazy is he's ideologically opposed to the transfer portal and
And paying players.
yeah,
Oh,
and
well,
Clemson's already not recruited at the level you would have think they would have. They recruit well, but they don't recruit like a program that's been in the college football playoff for 4 years, and that stuff just catches up to you.
well
Eventually, you don't get you don't develop the offense. It's usually on the line, right? You
they,
usually don't.
they recruited well enough that they should not have been losing to Duke
Yeah,
the
for
way they
sure.
lost to Duke, because he can say whatever he wants to say. You even take the mistakes out, and Duke probably still beats them. So I just wanted to throw that in there. We're way off the high school football in Pennsylvania track, but you know what? I think we're going to do a lot of
We're
that on this podcast.
we're on a high right now. Football's back. You can they can entertain us for a few minutes.
Yeah. One more thing I wanted to touch on. We talked last week or the week before about guys who we thought were um, worth the price of admission, or hey, go buy a ticket and watch these guys play. If you are just a casual high school football fan, you like to, because there are people like that, Dan, that, who just like, hey, this Friday, let's go see this kid play or that team play. You probably want to listen back to that podcast. I think we give you a pretty good list of guys maybe who you might want to check off just to see during the season. One of those guys you hadn't seen was Messiah Mickens. Uh, since we had the last podcast, you got to see that guy play. Danny's averaging almost 15 yards a carry right now in the season. What'd
You
you
want
think of
my
Messiah Mickens, Penn State commit?
you want my professional opinion?
Yes.
He's good. He's he's he's
Well,
a he's
stop
very
pressing.
good. I really don't know what else to say. He's just he's a very good football player. Like Sometimes you don't really need to go into the explosiveness. That guy's just he's just going to gain 30 yards every couple plays. And he also, I think the favorite thing that I got to see out of him was that they're using him as like a third down kind of linebacker, and he picked up a sack in the game as well. He's good. That's that's all I got.
They
He's a very
play
good.
we try to keep this podcast a little more evergreen, but they play we're recording this on a Thursday. Like I said, NFL opens up tonight. They play tomorrow night. Wyoming missing at home. Eric Epler will be out covering that game. So that's going to be really interesting game for Trinity. Talked to Jordan Hill last night. We're going to have some of that on PennLive.com tomorrow, just about how he feels where their program is in year two here, heading into this because they scheduled Wild missing last year, kind of knowing that they were going to get punched in the mouth and run over, and they were a little bit different expectation, I think, heading into this year for them. So that'll be on PennLive.com tomorrow. We got a lot of stuff on the website, Dan. The website is popping from the strongest guys in the mid pen to the fastest guys in the mid pen to, hey, we got the guys in the state who are averaging a first down or more per carry on there today, which there's some big names on there who are just ripping off long runs every time they touch it, 10, 15 yards a carry. We got that list kind of broke out for you. Um, I got to pick some predictions, which Epler claims to be a game up on me, but I'm calling for a recount and
You can
maybe
do
sending
that
some
now.
new electors to the polls here
You can do
or
that now in
whatever.
this country. You can just claim victory. So
Yeah, I'm just going to claim victory on it. Uh, I tell you what, though, again, I want everybody to go check out everything we got at PennLive.com. Please do that because we do put a lot of resources into covering high school football. But I wanted to close this podcast. Uh, a story we've had to cover, unfortunately, through this week, Dan. Um, Last Friday, Corn City, Mason Martin, their quarterback, he had scored a touchdown against Red Bank Valley. He was actually out playing defense, from what I understand, and they came back on the field to return a kick. Officials saw him sort of wobble and sway. Was the report and asked him if he was okay, and he said he wasn't. He collapsed. He ends up getting flown to a hospital with what has been reported to be a brain bleed and a collapsed lung. Since that time, we've read that he's taken some slight positive steps forward. Um, the lung is apparently healed some. I think from what one report I read, is they took the tube out of his chest. And if we get any of this wrong, we apologize. And none of this is meant, to misrepresent the situation. Seems to be a very serious situation. Obviously, still in the hospital. We haven't had an update in quite a few days, 2 or 3 days here now. Um, but this is the nightmare for coaches, for reporters, for parents. We realize that it is a dangerous sport. Um, it's a sport we all love. We love to cover, but it's dangerous. Bad things can happen sometimes to good people. By all accounts, this is a young man who had a favorite Bible verse. I think that he had tattooed. They said on his thigh, and they asked people to recite that. And if you go on the Corn City football Facebook, Twitter feed, they've been sharing some updates from his mom. And whatever you do, if you pray, send up good vibes, whatever. Um, when I had my cancer battle, there were some things that people told, doctors told me weren't going to work out for me. And the power of positivity and through prayer, um, through good thoughts from people did work out. So I really do believe in that power of positivity, the power of prayer, and just there's something synergistic about it. If you whatever you do, send positivity to somebody, do that for that kid and his family this week. And we all send our thoughts up to Carn City. Dan, I know you've probably been in that part of the country more than I have. I know you're aware of the story too. Anything you want to say about the situation?
I mean, just pretty much echoing what you said. It really makes you these type of things kind of. It's like it's similar to the Damar Hamlin thing, right? Where you do realize that not only is this, it's because you can go one way and say it's just a game, but you can also go the other way and say people form, family type relationships with these kids. Like these kids are going to war with each other pretty much for right pretty much every night for years. And It's heartbreaking, and hopefully, like the Damar Hamlin thing, some good can eventually come out of it at the end through sort of that communal bond. But I also just want to give a quick shout out. I don't know the official's name, but by all accounts, it sounds like the official during the game did a tremendous job noticing. It wasn't Mason who came up to him. He noticed Mason wasn't well. He stopped the game. Could have let the game keep going. Stopped the game. Asked if Mason was okay, and he told him, "No, I'm not." And he immediately whistled for everything. And you know, in these type of situations, a couple seconds can change everything. You very well, if you're a couple minutes late, 30 seconds late to hospital, an entire outcome changes. So um, it's one of those things you don't talk about a lot, but officials are really important in these situations too. It sounds like um, whoever that official is, I don't know your name, but um, yeah, people like you are helping a lot as well. So
So again, guys, prayers up, positivity, send it out to Carn City. We're praying for you guys. We're sending you love to you guys, and all the good vibes. We'll try to keep up with that story. And again, from everything we've read and everything we've been able to see, he has made a few slight positive improvements. Hope that that's just the beginning of, he's a strong young man. That's the beginning of a full recovery. So we're pulling for you guys at Carn City, and hopefully we don't have to see too many more stories like this, and this turns out to be a positive story like Damar Hamlin. So again, guys, keep them in your thoughts. Check us out on PennLive.com. So we'll continue to try to update that, and we'll have coverage from all our games this week. Dan, you got a podcast.
The UPMC sports medicine experts in Central PA are here to help keep you in the game and improve your quality of life, no matter your age or activity level. Visit upmc.com/Central PA SportsMed to learn more.